Give me just a moment. Hello everyone, welcome to Program Strings. I'm Henriette and I'm very happy to see you here. Happy to see those that are live with us on YouTube and also those that are joining us on Instagram Live. I am a violin teacher from Norwich, UK, and before Corona, I used to teach the majority of my lessons face-to-face and just a few online lessons on the sides. And I have been helping some of my colleagues by filming two videos actually, one for teachers and one for students about how to teach online, simply because I've been doing it for a couple of years. So I have been teaching most of my lessons, some of my lessons online, and so have my colleagues in recent weeks as well. And we are here today just to share some ideas about teaching and learning online that you may find useful, just to discuss a few things that you have come across. So you may already have watched the videos that I've made, Online Music Lessons Explained for Students and Teach Music Online for Teachers. And I filmed those, as I said, just before the schools were about to close. And since then, I have had many conversations with my colleagues and with my students about how online lessons can work. And that gave me the idea to do this session today, just to try and share experiences and to try and find an answer to any questions that you may have. So from the outset, I want to reiterate that I'm by no means an expert. I have just perhaps been doing this a little bit longer than most of you, and I'm very willing to help, because this is a time of need where we all can do with a little bit of support, because life is difficult in many areas. Now, how are we going to work this today? I am going to try and lead this conversation, and I would like you to feel free and take part in it. And if you're currently joining us on Instagram, see if you can find us on YouTube, on the Program Strings YouTube channel, and then you can join in the conversation as well. So on my screen, on the right-hand side, I can see a box that says live chat. If you have a question, or if you have an answer to a question that somebody else asks, then perhaps you can write that into the chat box, and I will try and streamline the conversation as much as we can. And if I forget your question, do by all means point it out to me and say, hey, don't forget me, I've got an important question. So let's get this started and let's get practicing on how we can communicate. And can I ask you that you just write your name and the place where you live in the chat box, and I'm going to do that now. So I'm Henriette and I am in Norwich, UK. So if you do that with me, it would be really nice to see where everyone is. Okay. So go on then, if you are willing to share your name and the place where you live with us, that is really good. And we're just doing this to practice. I won't pin you down and say, hey, you, can you give me an answer to this question? We are going to keep this very laid back, very informal, and it's just so that we can all learn a bit more. So perhaps I can start us all off by a question that one of my dear colleagues in Norwich asked me, who can't be here because luckily she is teaching at this stage, so she's teaching online. And I will ask you this question in a minute, okay? So while I'm waiting for people to write their names down, it would be good to know how things work, that if you want to barge in with something, that you know how to work it, okay? So there'll be plenty of time today to write your question down and your answers, but feel free and take your time to get to think of a question or an answer. And I think I'm going to give you lots of time to think about it, because one thing that we all have learned, I think, in the past couple of weeks is that we don't quite know how technology works, and it can get quite stressful if it doesn't work. So we're having the time today, and I want you to take your time to write your questions in there. Okay, one word of caution before we start off properly is that we're going to keep it respectful today, and we're going to keep it decent. So everyone has their own point of view, and that may not be yours, but we're going to be kind and nice to each other, okay? So the first question that my dear friend and colleague Helen has asked me, has anyone got any ideas about how to get around the time lag so that I can accompany my pupils? That is her question. Is there any way you might get around the time lag when you play something or you listen to your pupil play online? There is always a moment where you have to wait because the video is perhaps not completely synchronized with the sound. Is there any way, that's the question, to get around the time lag so that I can accompany my pupils? So if you have come across this issue, what have you done about it? Or is it still an issue for you? Anyone? Throw in, come in at the deep end and answer this question for me. So is there any way to get around the time lag that you experience in online teaching? What can we do about it? Anyone? No, I think I'll answer that question for you then. I experience a lot of time lag sometimes as well. In my house, because I've been doing some more online teaching, I've got super fast broadband, so I know that it's not at my end, although it very much depends on the type of internet that your pupil has. And in some places, and here in the UK, in Norfolk, where I am, rural Norfolk is more or less the worst place for broadband in the world. I've been teaching online quite a bit, and even if I teach a pupil in Australia or in India or anywhere else in the world, the connection is usually better than rural Norfolk. So that is my first thing to say. If you're here from abroad, then you might find that a bit easier. So as I said, it very much depends on the broadband at both ends. So even if I've got high-speed, super fast broadband installed in my house, it doesn't mean to say that there is no time lag, because it very much depends on the other party as well. If my pupil has got an issue with their internet, then it still won't work as well. Now, you can work your way around it and use this time that you have, that you would otherwise have accompanied your pupils, use it for other technical exercises that you may find yourself short of time in your day-to-day lessons, your face-to-face lessons, and leave the accompanying till later when everything gets back to normal. Of course, it will all get back to normal at some point. It's just a matter of when, but do a lot of playing together then and use this time for other issues. And I must say, I've been teaching a lot of postures and bow holds this week, because it is so much easier to see. And you can actually show, if I show someone a bow hold, I'll show it to you with my pencil here. You can show it very close to the camera, actually much closer than you would otherwise in real life see it. So you might use your time when you have online lessons to give it a positive twist and see if you can work your way around it and leave the accompanying. If you find a big time lag, leave your accompanying till whatever it might be, September time, I'm hoping, but who will tell? We don't know. Okay, so that's question number one. Is there any way to get around the time lag? That was the question. I haven't found another way to get around it, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's better. I've also experienced that a lesson that starts at 9 o'clock and you log on slightly earlier, that's when all the office people who work from home start to log on. So the internet generally goes down a little bit. Whereas if you teach a little bit later in the day, when some people have breaks, not everybody logs on at the same time, it's generally a little bit better. So that might have some repercussions for your scheduling of your lessons, for instance. If you experience this in particular, then why not start all your lessons on the quarter hour or on 45, quarter to or quarter past, to see if you can get around starting up as everyone else in your street who might be using the same type of broadband as you. Maybe that helps. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm perhaps having a few creative ideas. And do people please give us your suggestions? Okay, so I was telling you that I am doing other things with my pupils if I find I have restrictions on my online playing. Sometimes people find it very difficult to hear me, so for a long time I've worked with Skype, with the company Skype, to see if we could upgrade their software to fit violin playing, and they have not been able to resolve that issue. So despite me being their guinea pig and teaching a lot on Skype to help them sort out their frequencies, that didn't help very much at all. So that is still a restriction as well, that the sound quality is not as good. But you as a teacher, if you're an experienced teacher, you can tell whether someone makes the same noise as they always do, or whether it is today it's much worse because they haven't actually practiced, or whether you can always teach them musical ideas, can't you? And say, look, you know, diminuendo means getting quieter, so do a bit more of that. That sort of differences you can hear. Okay, so you can find out other things, and perhaps students that are here can barge in as well and give us some ideas about what you have found helpful or less helpful in the lessons. So I tend to use Zoom now for my online lessons. People have asked me, what platform do you use? I tend to use Zoom because it is just a little bit, the picture is a bit brighter than Skype and the lag is slightly less than Skype. I've also tried Google Hangouts, which for me didn't work. And I can't even remember why exactly, but I just found the picture quality on Zoom generally better than anything else. I'm not paid by Zoom to say this to you at all. So whatever platform works for you, do that. Some you have just a bit more feel with some platforms rather than others, I would say. What else is there? So scheduling, I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, because I found out a couple of things this week and last week as well when I was scheduling my lessons. I kept to the same lesson schedules as I used to before, which generally has worked fine. I tend to work in schools during the day, and the music lessons follow the timetable in each individual school, so the times are not always the same. And you might, when the school timetables change a little bit because the schoolwork is also all online, you might discuss with the school exactly what sort of schedules they have and stick with that to make communication with the staff that are looking after the children of key workers. They are, of course, aren't they? So I find we need to help them as much as we can and give the children as easy a time as possible. So you might liaise with the school staff and see what sort of timetable they tend to have, because they might have changed that compared with their normal day-to-day lesson time in a normal time. And then you might streamline your times with the school time so that it's a lot easier for everybody, because I've had several lessons this week when children were in the swimming pool at the time of my lesson, and that obviously doesn't work. What do I do then? What do I do if it all goes pear-shaped? You can ask yourself. And in this case, I have just offered the child, I've said, you know, look, sorry, I didn't know you were going to be swimming, and she didn't know that she was going to be swimming. And perhaps neither her teacher knew that she was going to be swimming. So I've just said, why don't you just play as if you're in a normal lesson, play your scale and your piece, and record it on a video. Let mummy record it on a video, and then you can send me the video and I'll send you a video back. I mean, lots of parents are quite stressed at the moment. Lots of children are a bit stressed because they don't know how to work their schoolwork online. They don't know how to do their music teaching online. So I have been really quite lenient because people don't always have good internet where they are. That is one way around it, to say, okay, why don't you send me a video and I'll send you a little video back. In a way that makes things easier because you're not restricted to that half hour. And one other thing that I came across this week is that with a little boy who's only just started lessons and he's playing on quite a crappy little violin. We have been tuning the violin for half an hour and that was his lesson. And when the lesson finished, the violin was not yet in tune. And that is just heartbreaking, but there's very little I can do about it. So you have to work your way around that. And just this poor little boy, he was trying his hardest to learn to tune his violin. And I think is that a good thing? Perhaps it is. We have to just keep thinking positively about all the issues that get thrown on our way as we try to make this all work. First of all, you've got to always remember, as a teacher, they have their contact time, and that gives them a reason to practice. So I think that's a very good thing. If you didn't come online, the students